All right, greetings everyone. Welcome to our Pagico Workshop number 2. First of all, Happy New Year to everybody. Hopefully the year is starting off great. And today I'm thrilled to be here with you and to share some of the tips about Pagico and in terms of managing contacts and clients with you. So once again, it's great to have you all here. And if you want, feel free to type in the chat. I'll be able to monitor your messages throughout the workshop. So if you have questions, just ask them and I'll try to address them whenever possible. Okay. In the meantime, yeah, please let me know if you can see me and hear me okay. And if there's any audio or video problems, just pop them up, mention them in the chat. It'd be great. Yeah, so once again, welcome to our workshop. In case you're new here, my name is Trey Meng. I am the co-founder of Note 17, developer of Pagico. Yeah, so we really appreciate your presence here. Yeah, all right. Thanks so much for your feedback. I appreciate it. So now, without further ado, let's dive right in. So by now, you should be able to see my screen. Let me just double check. Make sure everything looks good. Everything does look good. Very nice. So yeah, today our main topic is going to be using Pagico as your CRM platform. CRM stands for content relation or client or contact relationship platform, right? So you're basically going to manage your contacts and clients and everything about your contacts so that you can stay up to date and keep track of all the really important dates without falling behind. But again, we're open to different topics. So if you have different ideas, different questions, please type them in the chat and we'll definitely get to them later. So right now what you're seeing is my today view, and let's get right down to business. So first of all, I want to talk about contact management, right? So right now I'm going to go to my contact section here and let me delete, well, let's keep them here actually for now. So this is the contact list. And for those of you who have been using Pagico in the past few months, weeks, or even years, you might notice that I am looking at a slightly different contact list. And that is because I'm using the latest version of Pagico that was released last night. And so if you haven't updated, once you update, you will see the same contact list. This is actually a brand new list view, and we'll get back to this in just a moment to talk about its latest features and new capabilities. But for now, let's talk about contact management, right? So basically, you can manage contacts alongside with projects in Pagico, right? A couple of easy ways to create new contacts is by switching over to the contacts section over here on the sidebar, and then click on, obviously, on the new contact. So once you click on that, you will be able to enter name that you're about to create, right? You can do that. Alternatively, let's say you're on a dashboard or anywhere in Pagico, right? So if you want to create a new contact, you might notice that the main action here is no longer new contact, right? And so when that happens, you can click on the down arrow button right here, and this will give you access to all the possible new things that you can create in Pagico, including the new contact. So it'll get you to the same functionality, right? Alternatively, there's also a keyboard shortcut, right? So Shift, Command, and N will get you the same new contact prompt. And so anytime you're creating a new contact, you will be creating a new container. And this is just like projects, right? So you can manage your checklists, tasks, notes, emails, files, and of course, metadata about this contact, right? So you can enter everything you want over here. But many of us already have contacts in our contacts book, in our address books, and elsewhere, right? And so let me talk about ways to import existing contacts, right? So right now I have my contacts up, right? So let's say you have some contacts you want to import into Pagico. To do that, you make sure that you are in the contacts list section, right? And then just find out whatever contacts you want to import. You can select a single one. You can select multiple ones in bulk. Either way. So I'm going to drag and drop the Apple contact card into my Pagico by just dragging and dropping. So once you drag and drop, you will import this contact directly into Pagico. Please note that by doing this, you are not linking to your contacts application in macOS. You're really duplicating it and importing it as a separate sort of a copy of that. And so once you import that, all the main information that's originally in your address book will be imported as metadata over here. And so that is a really easy way for you to get contacts into Pagico. Okay, and if we go back out here, we would be able to see the new thing that we just created. So moving forward, let's talk about something else, right? Let's talk about importing through the CSV format. Many of you guys use different product, different applications that generate or manages contacts, right, in large quantities. And in that case, exporting as VCF or vCard format may not be convenient. So in that case, you can export them as a CSV format, which many applications actually performs that kind of functionality. So let me go to one of my CSV files over here. So here's a little CSV that I prepared. It contains only a few lines of contacts over here. So let me zoom in a little bit so you can see better. I created a few dummy contacts over here, right? So in terms of field names, they're pretty standard, right? So most of the contact management system already produce CSVs in these kind of formats. So in most cases, you don't have to hand build the field names, right? So we're talking about first name, last name, and email. So these three columns really are the most important fields. Everything else will be imported as metadata. So in other words, they will be kept as is, right? So let me demonstrate how that works. Going back to my contacts list, I already have these contacts in my list, so I'm going to delete them, right? So by multi-selecting and hit delete, right? There you go. So let's say I want to import the CSV file. And all you need to do is to drag and drop into your contacts list. And once you do that, it'll import all the contacts that's included in the CSV. And let's go into one of them and see, information. So as you can tell, the email is imported correctly, the phone number, the company name, and even other metadata types like contact type. In this case, I imported a few contacts. Some of them have the field contact type set to client, and some of them set to supplier, as you can see right here. And so this is actually a pretty cool feature in Pagico that, when you have specific fields that you have special meanings about, right, you can actually enable the auto grouping feature. You can enable auto grouping feature on any of the properties. As you can see, I have already enabled the company label right here. And you can see it's indicated by the blue icon right there. And it wouldn't make much sense to enable that because I'll explain that in just a moment. Let's say we just enable the contact type as a label, right? So what that does is that you're creating a new subgroup of contacts right here. And if you click on that, you will see everybody who carries this particular label will be shown over here. And that means you don't see 250 contacts you have in the entirety of your database. You only see people that carries this label. For instance, only 3 people carry this label, contact type, and you can see there's client, there's supplier. You can sort by them. You can easily find stuff that you're looking for. And let's check out the company section right here. So by selecting company, we're sorting or grouping based on companies. And you can sort them, and you can find people really, really easily. So this is the auto grouping feature, right? And one of the things that's usually overlooked is that, once you have the contact, you just leave the metadata. My recommendation here is that you really want to take full advantage of the metadata fields. And you can really type anything you want, right? For instance, right now we have the company, we have contact type, and maybe we'll have, let's say a birthday, right? We can have a birthday field. We can say April 1st, and that way we'll be able to store that information right there. And let's enable the birthday field, right? So let's say if that is something that you need to browse very often. So once you enable that field, you have one new thing showing up right there. And if you click on that, everybody who carries this new birthday field will be listed right here. Okay? So this is a really handy feature for you to supply custom information to contacts and browse and filter them really quickly. So that's about using metadata to manage contacts. While we're talking about it, I do want to pop back up to projects really quickly. As you see, the project section has a similar sublist structure, and that means you can do the same thing in terms of metadata with projects, right? So just quickly pop over to the projects over here. Let's say this is our workshop number 2, and we'll say this is, type user add, right? So this would be a metadata I added to this particular project. And once I have this metadata here, let's say I think it's really important for it to show up under the project section, Click on that icon over here will get me the same results. And by doing that, we will be able to browse every project that has this type field in the metadata, allowing you to filter things really quickly. For example, if you're a teacher, if you teach classes and you would say this is type colon a class, right? And or you can say, well, if you teach the same course over multiple semesters, you would have a property that says semester and then spring 2023. And then further down the line, you might have, fall 2023 and so on and so forth. And by having a semester tab right here, you will see all your courses only and listed and sorted by semester names, right? So that's a really cool way for you to manage both contacts and projects. All right, so moving on, I do want to touch a little bit more on the contacts sort of concept here. Contacts in many applications, contacts are really just address books, right? So you can manage address, email address, and some other basic information. But in Pagico, you can manage so much more, right? So inside a contact, you can create anything you want, just like a project. You can have context-specific tasks. For instance, this is John Smith. And let's say we just met a few days ago, and I should touch base with him probably next Monday. So I would say touch base next Monday, right? So I can just do this, and I would have created a task that says touch base next Monday. And on the dashboard, you will be able to see this particular task listed under this person. And let's say, with John, we may need to draft a contract, right? So draft contract today, right? So draft contract today, and so that I don't forget about, this important thing, so that next time when I'm touching base with him, I would have been really prepared, right? So you can manage context-specific tasks. Of course, you can also have checklists, right? So, let's say he has a few requirements for an upcoming project, right? So requirement 1, requirement 2, and so on and so forth, right? So you can really document your conversation or emails or, potential future collaboration. Sometimes if you want to manage things by type of client, you can have leads, you can have prospects, you can have friends, you can create various categories that you assign to, right? For instance, this one is John is actually someone I met at school, so I would assign the school category to him, right? And you can customize the categories by going to your preferences, and you can choose the colors that you want, and you can name the categories that make sense to you, and so that you can color code your contacts basically. So these are the checklists, and of course, if you have a conversation with him, you can also have meeting notes, right? Note body over here. So the notes are fully formatable, and you can even include tables inside your notes. And so this is a perfect place for you to take notes about your meetings, about your phone conversations, Zoom meetings, and things like that. By the way, for instance, if you have a dedicated Zoom room for this particular contact, you can actually have the Zoom link right here, right? So you can actually have the Zoom link set right here in the metadata, and so that anytime you want to join his personal room, or if you want to have a meeting with him, one click, you're there. So yes, definitely tasks and checklists under contacts, and of course notes. One other thing that we deal with very often with contacts is documents, and of course probably emails, right? So here I want to show you how to import emails into contacts. Let's say this is a really important email. I will just drag and drop, and here we go. We have our email, and I can fold it, and so that we can have a nice little list view, and we can actually do a few more over here. So all the emails will be copied into your database, and that means they're really duplicated, right? So to some, this might be inconvenient, but actually think about it this way. Everything here, stored here, ideally is synchronized through the personal cloud, right? And so every email inserted over here is duplicated into your Pagico database, which is synced through the personal cloud. And so you would have access to them even when you're on a different computer or on your mobile device. And so there's the advantage of accessing or storing emails right within your database. So when you have a couple of email addresses, you will notice that Pagico will render some of the metadata for you, right? For instance, it will show you the subject, it will show you the sender, show you the date when it was received, and you can also sort everything by the recipient date. And so even though you may have important emails in different orders, right, you can still sort everything based on the time that they actually occurred. And that gives you a really nice way to keep track of the conversation. Chris, I'm reading your comments over here. Oh, great. I'm so happy that you're learning something about contact management. So yeah, feel free to keep your feedback coming, and we'd love to read about it. So here are the email management. For every message, you can actually add description or add tags if you need to come back to them down the line. For instance, this is ride share, right? Okay, so I'm adding a tag over here, right share. So anytime you're searching for a certain tag, this document will pop up. So in terms of reading the message, right? So there are a couple of ways to read it. One way to read it is to just hit space to preview it. And that will just engage macOS's internal document preview functionality, and you will have a really quick way to look at the content of the message and without even opening mail. Alternatively, of course, you can double click on that and it'll open up whatever email client that you have as a default email application on your system, right? So double click on that would open up mail on my system or it's airmail. So we don't need that right now. There's the idea. Oh, by the way, since we're talking about it, if for some reason, if you double click on the mail application, it opens up a different application than your intended application, right? So what do we do with that? So one of the ways to do that is to change your default email app. So by right-clicking on it and showing Finder, you will see this email document itself. As you can see right now, it's being handled by airmail by default. Let's say that's not the intended application. I can right-click on that, press and hold Option, Show Inspector, and then I can choose to open this using the Mail app, and I can choose to change all of them. So once I change all of them, all the future emails will be handled by the designated application. Okay. I'm reading a message from OO, I think. It's really hard to pronounce your name, so I don't want to butcher it. But yeah, that's a great question. Can you respond to emails right within Pagico? And the answer is no. Pagico doesn't have an email functionality inside. It doesn't have an email client. It only stores your email documents and lets you open them or preview them any way you want. And so in order to respond to emails, you would still need to open up the email and respond to messages using whatever email clients that you use. All right, so that is about managing emails. And similarly, you can manage anything, right? Any documents. For instance, if you're drafting a contract with someone, drop in the contract. If you're drafting some other kind of document, place the document over here. And so yeah, there's no limitation on the types of document you store in Pagico. And you can really just centralize all the resources around contacts or companies. Now, the other part of contact management is that no one works in the vacuum, right? Everybody is related to someone else, right? So how do you create the connection between one contact to another one, or to another team, or maybe to another project, right? To do that, you would click on the plus sign over here and choose to link with another project or contact. So this lets you create container level links. And basically, you're just connecting multiple projects together. So let's say I'm going to link that with John Smith with Pagico Workshop 2, right? So just hit enter, and there we go. We have a little contact or project card in this case. So I'm linking to another project, and once you go to that project, you would see a backlink created for you automatically. And that means when you're reviewing that project, you can see, oh, everybody who's involved in that project are also going to be visible right here. Okay. So one of the fun things about this kind of container link is that not only you get a sense of contact info, right, and connections, but also you get a comprehensive view of schedule. Let's say John Smith is deeply involved in my Pagico Workshop 2 project, right? And so one of the things I usually do is I would review the timelines and calendars. And so, for instance, workshop 2, I should go live at 1:30, and I did, fortunately. So I can mark that off in a little bit. But you can also see John Smith's timeline also showing up in this project. And that means you get to see projects and contacts, related ones, right, in the same view. Same thing applies to, John Smith, right? Let's say, oh, you have this John Smith and he is involved in multiple of your projects, right? So what are the important dates, right? So switching over to the timeline and calendar, you will see John Smith's own timeline and all the projects he's involved in, right? And that way you can have a bird's eye view about his involvement, his or her involvement, right? And make plans accordingly. Remember, once we're talking about timelines, right, there are 3 different views of timeline, right? So you can view everything based on this Gantt chart style rendering, which gives you a very long forecasting sort of horizon. And number 2 is a list view that shows everything neatly on a list. And the number 3 view is obviously the calendar. So if you're a calendar person, if you prefer a week or month view, this is the view for you, right? So remember, there are additional ways for you to view your data. All right, so that is about linking contacts with projects, right? So one final thing about this is that you might notice that I have a little chart over here that looks kind of strange. And this is actually the sort of task planning completion rate kind of thing. Let me create one more task for you to show you how it might look, right? So in my Pagico Workshop 2, I have one task, which is go live, right? And then I want to say, okay, process the archive tomorrow, right? So I'm going to process the archive, make sure the timestamps are added correctly, right? So I have another task that's for tomorrow. As you can see, that's the other task, right? So if I go back to John Smith, you will see a little chart showing that, hey, on today you have one pending task, or I have one pending task on that project, and on Jan 7th I would have 2 tasks pending, right? So it really is a workload miniature version of a workload forecast, right? So by just looking at it, you will be able to see how behind are you. Hopefully you're not, right? And how much more work is pending. And you would get the same sort of a preview when you're in the context view. So this is linking projects with contacts, right? Moving forward, let's talk about something else. Let's say if you deal with clients on a daily basis, right? And so let's say you have a lot of clients and you have to enter them into your database pretty frequently. And you might notice that there are some routines that you have to do, right? For instance, if I say, okay, so John Smith, okay, is our, well, let's go to a different contact. Let's go to Mark Brown. Okay, so let's say Mark Brown is our very new client. And so for every new client, I need to do a number of things, right? So I would create a new task or new list. So I would call it action list, right? So typically, whenever I add or I meet a new client, potential client, right? So I would email to touch base tomorrow. I would email tomorrow just to make sure that we establish that connection. And what else would I do? Oh, okay, maybe draft some kind of document, right? So let's say draft an event plan, right? So let's say that's what I do. Maybe that is going to be starting from tomorrow I would probably spend a few days on it. So I would set a date to it, right? What else? Oh, let's say if I sent him everything and haven't heard back in a little while, I would do a little follow-up in about 2 weeks, right? So in 2 weeks, it is going to be, okay, so let's say today is the day I met Mark Brown, and so in 2 weeks, the 20th would be when I do the follow-up, right? And oh, let's say anytime I have a new client, I would need to have a folder containing all the assets, right? For instance, onboarding documents, example contracts, things of that nature, right? So I would have my folder over here, and perhaps I have other things, right? So, oh, let's see, what else? Okay, contact type, client, maybe I'll just say this is a prospect, okay? So not quite a contact yet. All right, so everything looks good, and here's what I'm going to do. suppose this is a routine process, right? As you can tell, it can get pretty lengthy. And imagine doing the same thing repeatedly for every single client, right? So that's going to take you a lot of time. So I want to introduce you to the template feature. So now, suppose I'm happy with everything I created over here. I would save that as a template, and I would name it as a new client. Okay, so anytime I have a new client, I would use this template. And then create template. There we go. So now we have a template. Okay, how do we use it? So let's say now I'm on a different day and I just met a new client, right? So I'm gonna click on the down arrow over here. Instead of doing a new contact, which you can certainly do, you would go new with template. And so I would say, oh, new client. See, that's the new template we just created. I would click on that, and the new person's name is Tim Jam. How's that? Okay, so create a new contact, and there it is. Everything we just created is already there, and including all the follow-up tasks, all the documents, things like that. Let's say on a different day, right? So I'm going to create another one, right? So this one is going to be Terry, okay? So also new client, but when is it going to start? Let's say we're on a different day. Let's say we're on the 10th already. So I would choose that day, and by default, it's defaulting to the current date, right? So when you have that, you would have all the dates, and everything's shifted for you automatically, which is really handy, right? Reading some of the chat messages over here, viewing connected timelines and workload forecasts is right. Yeah, glad to hear that. Indeed, it is very nice view for you to see a combined schedule or workload across your projects and your contacts. Reading a message from OOO with timelines occurring over a few weeks and months. Is there a way to highlight progress, percentage completed? That's a great suggestion there. Currently, Pagico doesn't have a completion. Well, actually, let me go back. So if we go into Pagico Workshop 2, right? So let's say I completed one task, which is going live. One way to visualize your progress is by using the summary view inside a project. So once you're in a project, you would see this overall progress. I'm not sure if this is what you're looking for, but this is what Pagico renders right now. It shows you how many tasks you have completed and how many are still pending and whether you're on schedule or not, right? For instance, if you're behind by 3 days, you would have a variance of -3 days or positive, depending on how you're looking at it, right? And if you are completing ahead of time, then you will be negative on the variance. And that means you're in the green, you're not behind, everything looks good. Since we're talking about it, I do want to touch base on the summary view a little bit because I think it's a little under discussed over the past few months, maybe, because this feature has been around for a long time. A couple of things about this summary here. It is designed to simplify your information presentation. And so imagine you have a super long project over here with lots of tasks and files, and some of them completed, some of them are archived, some of them behind, right? So by switching over to summary, you will get a simplified presentation of where you are in general, and it will also visualize the task breakdown, right? So my one task that's completed was actually color-coded in blue, and that's why you're seeing this one thing as blue. And if I have another one, let's say prep the stream yesterday, right? So I would assign a different category to it just to show you how things might look differently. Let's see, maybe completed, okay, and then I'm gonna mark that as a complete. You would see the color breakdown of all the things you created over the past 7 days. And so this gives you a really nice backward view of your accomplishment, right? How much time have you spent, or how much attention have you given to a certain category? And so that brings up an interesting point. That is, you have to plan your categories really well, right? So remember, you have a number of categories, right? So if you go into your database specific section here, you have a number of categories, all right? So you can create your category right here and assign colors, and so that they correspond to your workload really well. And that way, when you go into your project, you will get to see a really nice color-coded breakdown of your past 7 days. As you can see, I completed one task behind schedule, and therefore I have a little slippage of 1 day. just to indicate that, hey, I'm a little behind and I better catch up, right? There's the content by categories of breakdown, and you will be able to see every category involved in your project as well. One of the cool features here is this list view, right? So let me create another list just to show you how it looks, right? So let's say this is the streaming, right? So this is a streaming of my workshop. And what about the marketing side of it, right? So I would send out email announcements perhaps yesterday as well, right? Because I should send out emails to let people know that, hey, this thing is happening, right? And perhaps send out sort of post-event announcement tomorrow, right? So I should do that as well, right? So these are my marketing actions, right? So going to the summary, what you will see is you will see every list rendered as an individual card, and only the most immediate action is rendered. And that means you're not distracted by the hundreds of things that you have in your project. Instead, you're looking at, okay, streaming, what do I need to do? I need to process the archive tomorrow. Great. And for the marketing, what do I need to do? Oh, I should send out an email yesterday. Fine, I've done that. Right? So once you completed that, the view will automatically refresh in a little bit, and it will present you the next upcoming task that you're supposed to do. So this is really a nice way for you to stay focused and not get distracted or overwhelmed by the sheer amount of information you have. And of course, linked items are also rendered right here for your convenience. All right, so finally, I want to introduce you once again to the Today view, right? So the Today view is another attempt to simplify and reduce the distraction that you can get from your data, right? So it's really designed to simplify your data. By looking at it, you can see I have one task that's really pressing today, which is drafting a contract for John Smith. And I can mark that as completed right here or do something else. One of the new features that's introduced to this view is actually the sort by time. If you have a lot of items showing up for your current day, for instance, you have a 2 o'clock meeting, you have a 6 o'clock, you have this contract thing that's due all day. Sometimes when they're created in different sort of order, or you move things around, things might be out of order in terms of time. And when that happens, you can click on that button right there to suddenly and immediately sort everything by the occurrence time. So you get to see 2 o'clock showing up before 3 and before 5, and everything before the all-day tasks. So here's a little preview of everything for tomorrow, right? There's quite a bit of things. And one other thing I want to just briefly touch base on is the ability to resize the bar, the taskbar. And so for those of you who have really nice big monitors, remember, you can always zoom out over here to have a dual column view of your today, and so that you can have more area to show the information. Oh yeah, and by the way, you also have a day view in the calendar sort of mode, rendering all of your things in this single day format, in case you're a calendar view person, right? All right, so that actually concludes everything I have in terms of Pagico as a CRM platform. Oh yeah, before concluding this section here, I do want to touch base briefly on the brand new list view that you see right here. So once again, this is brand new, right? So if you've been using Pagico in the past, you might notice that this is slightly different to what you're used to, right? That's because this was just released last night. And so as soon as this is done, you can go ahead and download a new version and give it a spin. So let me give you a really quick, sort of sneak peek of what you can expect in this view. So first of all, this list view offers better experience and better performance, right? And then you can sort everything by individual column, by last name, by category. Right now I only have one category, and you can filter them by the different category. Maybe I should do something like this. Let me add another category just to show you. All right, so going back to contacts, I would have the different categories. You can filter by tags, you can sort by modified time, just as before. And it's really nice because it also lets you do per column filtering. For instance, if I say, okay, I want to see all the Johns that I have in my database, right? So you can do that. You can also filter by categories, and you can also enable the extra columns. And this is definitely a brand new thing. So for instance, if I look at this contact list, and let's say I really want to see all the company properties, or maybe the birthday properties, or some other things that really matter to you. Click on the extra columns and choose, let's say, company in this case, right? So selecting company, and there we go. We have all the company columns right here. And these are all coming from your metadata, which is unlimited in terms of the properties. So you can basically write down anything that matters to your company, to your business, to your daily work, regardless of the property names. So let's say, yeah, company is great. I probably also want to see contact type, right? So are they, clients? Are they prospects? There we go. So yeah, this extra columns, per column filtering, sorting by individual columns, and with intelligent suggestions, this will all make your, navigation and finding information that much easier. The list is available to not only contact, but also project list as well. For instance, right now in this dummy database, I only have 2 items here. But yeah, once again, you will get to filter everything by individual columns or by any given number of extra metadata properties. And the other thing that's really cool about this is that all the extra columns, they are saved. And so anytime you're enabling them, you will see that they get persistently displayed until you disable them, of course. Sometimes, let's say, let me add a category over here. Let's say that's actually not complete. That's in progress right now. Going back to the projects, home projects, I'll set that as family. Okay. So by having these categories, you can not only filter them by the dropdown, let's see, but also you can reorder the columns. Let's say you have hundreds of projects, right? And you're doing a lot of streaming work and video work, and you really want to sort everything by the category and show the category even before the project title. You can do that by simply dragging and dropping the category to the very beginning. And so you get to see the categories first with their color labels, and then followed by the title, and perhaps followed by the type of work, right? So the sky's the limit. You can customize any way that you view your data, and these changes will be saved and preserved, and so that you'll always come back to the preferred view of your data. So in addition to contacts and projects, if you have collections, the projects and contacts will be listed using the newer list view component as well. And if you have teams, the team content will also be listed using this newer module. So definitely take advantage of the brand new list view to find data really quickly. All right, so that concludes my planned content, and now let's go into a live Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to chime in, and I'd love to answer your questions as much as possible. So right now I'm reading a message from Chris. Can you touch base on the inbox? Yeah, of course. So the inbox is really designed to be compliant with the GTD method, where it recommends people to drop down their ideas without categorizing them, because categorization might take a lot of extra time and might be distracting, right? So instead of figuring out what projects your new task is going to be, you would actually just go ahead and create a new task and save them as, into your inbox as the default location. So let's say, come up with my next brilliant idea maybe tomorrow, right? So let's say that's my task, and I don't really know where it belongs to, right? So I would just hit enter, and it'll get saved into my inbox. And so basically, it's a way for you to, just get ideas out of your brain, offload it, and then you can later on review everything right here, right? And so the inbox really is just like a project, right? It contains everything. It contains tasks. It can contain checklists, files, emails, documents. Everything that you can do with projects, you can do them right here in inbox. And let's say down the line, let's say you think, well, this project, it's nice, and so I should move that to a certain place, right? So I should move that to maybe home projects. So you can categorize them later, right? Right now you're seeing everything listed by time, right? So you can also list it by type, which is similar to what you see in projects, right? So you have lists, you have notes, and everything like that. So that's inbox. People use inbox in different ways, right? So you can use the GTD method and just quickly start from inbox regardless of what you're doing, or you can just use inbox as a place to catch everything that doesn't fit into any mold. You can just put them in inbox. Some of the tasks that are really short-term, temporary, they actually live and die or get completed in inbox, right? They don't have to have their own projects, so to speak. So that's inbox. And the other view of inbox is that anytime if you're using the browser extension to create new tasks within a web page, everything will by default go into your inbox. So you don't have to choose the project that you're saving things into. If you're using Zapier, you can also automate some business rules. So certain things will go into your inbox, but with Zapier, you can also select containers. And so for certain other emails, you can have them to be sent directly into a certain container in a team. All right, so I'm reading a chat message from Rick. Can you move the linked contacts below task and less on the content page for a project? Many projects take a lot of the page. Right, that's a great point. I actually totally agree with you. Right now, there's no way to move the linked contacts or linked areas. It is located near the very top, but that's a feature request that we'll definitely save and we'll get back to it. We'll try to implement that in the very near future, hopefully. Our idea is to make sure that the interface can be customized as much as possible, so that it works for as many people as possible. And being able to move these groups around is definitely high on our list, and we'll definitely do that. All right, so yeah, once again, we're in this Q&A session right now. If you have any questions or thoughts, please mention them in the chat and I'll be happy to cover them. All right, so I'm reading a message from, I'm an academic and I have my courses listed in collections by semester. However, you seem to suggest that metadata could be used. What would you suggest? Right, okay, so you can definitely use collections to filter or frame your data, right? For instance, if you teach on a regular basis, you would definitely have a lot of courses across different semesters. Yeah, you can use smart collections, or you can use the filter metadata right here. Let me simulate that for you. So let's say here is my A101 intro to what? Okay, so intro to business. Okay, so let's say that's my course. And one of the ways that I can do it, first of all, I would assign a category, right? So that would be a school thing, right? So that's a school project. And remember, you can also use tags, right? So you can say this is a teaching job. Yeah. And then one of the ways to manage this really well is that you can have, semester, and this is spring 2023, right? And eventually down the line, I'm going to duplicate it, right? So A101 intro to business. Suppose I'm teaching that again later in the semester. So I would still keep the school but change the spring 2023 to fall 2023, right? So now I have two projects of the same class. So if you review your project, you will see things being pretty confusing because I'm seeing multiple things, but make sure you're enabling the extra column semester. And wait, they should show up right here. For some of the reasons they're not. That will be something we'll need to look into. But the ideal is that, the fall 2023 and the spring 2023 will be showing up right here, helping you to identify and visualize things. So beyond that, you can also enable auto grouping. So by doing that, you can actually view all of your classes by the semesters, right? So now if you click on that, you would see A101. And let's say I'm teaching more than one class. Let's say I have a B101 intro to music, right? So let's say I have a music class. And I would also give it a semester property, and I will call it spring 2023, right? So I'll stop right there. Going to the semester, I would be able to see the A's and the B's, and you will have a lot of similar things, right? And you can actually just sort everything by title or sort everything by semester to see all of your courses, right? So that will be one way to do it. Alternatively, it's to create a new collection called courses. I would recommend creating a smart collection because you would be matching things by tags, right? So I would do a courses smart collection, that automatically lists everything that I have tagged as school. I just realized that I forgot to tag the music as a teaching. So I would do that, save, going back to our collection, courses. So by doing that, I would be able to see, all my teaching courses across semesters. So which one is better? Well, it depends, right? So in this case, in the Smart Collections case, you not only get the list view, but also you get the Kanban style view. And so if you do, let's say, have a need of moving things across different categories, right? This definitely gives you the extra advantage. And the other thing is, in a Smart Collection, you also get a timeline view of everything embedded. And so if you have different deadlines, different things, and you will be able to see all of their deadlines rendered in groups. So that's the extra power of doing things in Smart Collections. The downside of this, or the upside of doing it this way, is that you have one less thing to worry about. You don't need to create a Smart Collection. And so you can just see everything right here in one view. So they all have different advantages and disadvantages, but they're relatively similar if you're talking about a Smart Collection. I'm trying to get my head around when it's best to use tags, Smart Collection. Right, so, well, Pagico was designed with a lot of atomic level features that you can use in combination, right? So in a lot of cases, you can achieve similar things through different paths. One of the, good way to leverage the power of tags is to use the all data. Let's say if you constantly find yourself discovering or exploring your data library, then tagging probably makes a lot of sense, because in the all data section here, you get to see all of your categories and your tags, right? So for instance, if I want to see all of my school projects, and then suppose I have multiple tags, right? I have, probably you would have teaching, you have research, you have other things, and service, right? So imagine you have a bunch of tags right here. So you can select school first and then choose teaching. And so by doing that, you're selecting an intersection of multiple search criteria really easily, right? And so that will be an advantage of using tags. Alternatively, you can also add tags to, add the semester ID to your tags, maybe SPR 2023, right? Yep. So if I did that and go into all data and switching over to school, I would see the two tags and I would see, oh, what did I do during spring 2023? And here is what I did. So you can use that as well in terms of a combination. So there's that. I didn't really offer a clear answer to your question, but I just wanted to let you know that there's all these possibilities. So it really depends on, what you make use of it. One other thing to think about is that categories are mutually exclusive. It means that everything can only have one category assignment, but tags can have multiple, right? So your project single course can have spring 2023 teaching, or spring 2023 promotion and tenure, things like that, right? So you can have multiple tags describing your courses. So if you're teaching, I would recommend having a school as a category and then all the other attributes as tags. Reading a question from Susan, how do we create a group within projects? So could you elaborate a little bit? What kind of group are you thinking about? Is it like a group of projects, or is it a group of notes, things like that? I'll definitely take more advantage of the of categories, because categories are really easy to use, lets you search through things really nice and quick, and also they let you color code everything, right? So there's that. And beyond that, I do want to point out that, okay, so inside a project, right? So in this case, my project, the category assignment is Pagico in progress. Within the project, you can also have different categories. For instance, this is, marketing, right? So I would probably have a marketing, I don't have it right now, but ideally you would have a different category, and you can assign to it, and you can browse content any way you want. So there's that. Client type. Oh, okay. So I got it. So you want to see, let's say in a project, you want to see all of your clients that matches, certain criteria, right? You can definitely do that. So let's say this is my project and I want to see a list of things. What you want to do is you want to do a smart list, right? And smart list is a really nice way for you to frame your data any way you want, right? For instance, in this intro to business, I probably want to talk about my clients, right? So not a good idea to really use real clients in your class, right? But anyway, so I would, give it a title, right? So these are my clients. And then I can set criteria. And the type would be, I'll be looking for contacts, right? So I have 8 matching items here. And then category, I should really categorize them first. Tax categories, do I have anything like maybe just full text. So contains client, okay? So I have 1. Oh, interesting. So save that. And there we go. We have a little list, okay? John Smith. And if I have more clients that matches this criteria, more of them will show up right here. So this is a little list view of a mini search result that you can define the criteria and frame your data any way you like. We have a tutorial on this not too long ago. It was about creating a dashboard, a business dashboard using the smart list, right? So imagine you can have multiple smart lists. You would have one smart list showing all the pending tasks from your contacts, from your clients, and then another list showing all the completed or all the file documents that's involved inside contacts, right? You can do all of these things. Or let's say courses, my courses, right? So if for some reason I need to see a list of my courses, I can go ahead and set criteria, type if it's going to be project, and we just use tags. Let's use tags. Tags contains teaching, right? So, and save that. There we go. So those are my project matching this particular tag that I can have easy access to. And remember, this is a smart search result, and so it's always up to date. Whenever you view the content, it'll be refreshed and researched, and so that you will see the up-to-date information. Okay, so reading more message from Susan, or you've got semester and type as groups within. Yeah, so I think what I just talked about sort of, fills the gap that you were describing, but let me know if, you have more questions. Is it Mirkalia, right? So sorry to butcher your name, but help me decide to use categories for vendors and tags for tasks. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So speaking of tags, right? So you have seen how to assign tasks to the entire, project, right? So you can do that. Let's say this is a user add, right? Kind of thing. Okay. So in addition to that, you can actually write tags right here within, inline, right? So process the archive. Let's say this is YouTube related or video related. I would do the @ symbol and then I'll just do YouTube, right? So you can just write tags really easily in line. And let's say send out post, event announcement. This will be a newsletter thing. So I would add newsletter. And so that's really handy. And so down the line, I can actually click on or search for all the newsletter actions, and I'll see everything that's newsletter related. So there it is, using tags. All right. Let's see, any other questions? We've covered a lot of grounds today, and it's been a productive hour, I think. So Mirkalia says, is there a limit to the amount of tags and categories we can set? No, there's no limitation on the amount of tags and categories you can set. This is my dummy database, but in my actual database, I have hundreds of tags. I don't have a lot of categories because, categories, you probably don't want to have too many. But tags, there's really, there are no technical limitation on the categories and tags. Susan says, where are the other webcasts available for viewing? Yeah, that's a great question. So on our website, we have a dedicated section for workshops, right? So let me pull that up. So here is our website. And if you go to the blogs section, you will see a dedicated section that says, well, it says templates, right? Um, let's see, where would they show up? This is our recent update. Right, okay, so if you go into any one of our announcements that talks about workshops, you can see there's a little header right there. This is Pagico Workshop series, and you will be able to browse all of our previous workshops. And for instance, this one is available, and this one that we're recording right now, live streaming right now, will also be available as an archive right here on our website. Alternatively, you can do pagico.com/workshops, and that'll get you to the same spot as well. But that's a great point. We'll make this workshop series button more visible. Alternatively, if you subscribe to, well, you must be a subscriber, right? If you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you would see our workshop series on the YouTube channel as well. Hey, Sarah, is it possible to put an estimate of how much time I expect a project or task to take? No, it doesn't have a dedicated field for that, but here's my recommendation, right? Let's say this is my workshop. And remember, there's a description field that you can write anything you want in there, right? So estimated 2 weeks, right? So you can put status message here. You can put any notes that you want to see right here. For tasks, yeah, as mentioned before, there isn't a dedicated field for you to do anything, but you can describe it, the estimated workload, time, resources here as description, right? So you can do that as well. Pagico doesn't do time tracking yet, and that's why it doesn't really have dedicated fields for you to say, hey, here's the estimated 15 hours, and here's how much time you actually spent. So it doesn't really have that. Alternatively, you can write, let's say, if you want to have some kind of a formality, you can actually write here in the metadata, estimated time 2 weeks. And remember, you can enable the estimated time as an extra column in the browser. And so you really can have this information displayed on the browser itself, right? So when you're going to the projects, and you can enable the estimated time column, which will show you the information you just put in. So hope that helps a little bit. And reading a message from OO, will the next workshop be in about 3 months? Has the topic been decided? No, we have not decided the next topic yet, but you're getting our rhythm pretty well. We're trying to do quarterly workshops, and every quarter as we get close, normally about a month ahead of time, we would send out a call for ideas, sort of a newsletter, so definitely keep an eye on that. We'll be doing a poll just like we did before, right? And you will be able to cast your voice, tell us what you want to hear, what you want to learn, and then we'll decide from there. So yeah, our ideas are open, and we're trying to do this on a quarterly basis. Sarah has a question, is time tracking on the roadmap? It is on the roadmap, but we try not to reinvent the wheels. There's a lot of great time trackers out there, and we don't want to build a lot of things into Pagico and make it too bloated, but time tracking is so closely related to project management, and it is possible that we'll get into it, but we need to make sure that we're going to do a really good job before we dive right in. So for the immediate future, we don't have time tracking on the table yet. Our most immediate priority is business automation. That is, we're trying to let the software do as much as you can. So by programming certain rules, you will be able to automate certain, mundane, repetitive actions into really, easy to do actions. Heart of Yoshi says, are there plans for a Kanban view for a list of tasks? I love how it is used for project and so visual. Yeah, Kanban view is really great, and that is one of the reasons why we did the Kanban browser right here. It is really lovely for you to be able to say, well, now that we're done with this, right, we can just move this down over here. So that's really nice. But in order for Kanban to work, it has to be a mutually exclusive relationship, right? And so for instance, you can't do Kanban with tags, because tags, every single task can belong to or be associated with multiple tags. So we didn't want to do that. And in terms of Kanban view for lists, that's definitely a possibility. It's really talking about different rendering of tasks in here, right? Instead of listing in a task view, you're talking about in a card view. So that's not impossible. We'll definitely look at how we can do it. We have a lot of different ideas in terms of the data rendering inside a container. So yeah, that's definitely on the table. Yep. All right, so it says, I noticed that when the sidebar is hidden, a collection shortcut is not visible. Are you talking about the ability to create collections? Is that what you're talking about? If the sidebar is collapsed, indeed, you don't have access to the collections, because collections are, sidebar items. And so, yeah, when that happens, you indeed don't have access to collections. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. We'll definitely look at how we can make this happen. Maybe in a collapsed sidebar mode, we will be able to show a submenu of your sidebar items, maybe, right? So these things. Yeah. That's a great idea. We'll definitely take a look at that. All right. Any other questions before we close it out? It's been a really fun and productive hour. I really appreciate all of your presence. Loved chatting with you. And I hope that today's session is helpful. And once again, Happy New Year. And hopefully your new year is productive. I'm about to lose my voice. Excuse me. So yeah, it's been a fun hour. Thank you so much for attending. And archive of this will be available shortly. And all of you will receive an email about the availability of the archive and link to it. Otherwise, have a great day and have a great year. Thank you so much.